All right, you know what that sound means. The clock is ticking down on how much time you have left to get your tax return filed. You only have a couple more days to get it in or file for an extension. All right, we don't want you to panic. We're here to help. We are joined by our expert Ryan Dodson with Liberty Tax Services, and we're going to be taking all of your questions about last-minute filing and answering your text questions. So here's what you need to do. Send us those text questions by texting the number that is on your screen right now. That's 336-379-5775. You can have your questions answered in real time, and they are anonymous. So I don't want you to feel like, oh, I can't ask this question because they're knowing I'm going to ask this question. You ask the question. And I'm sure that whatever question you're asking, I'm sure, Ryan, you've heard it a few times.
Probably so. I get a lot of questions.
Okay, just to give people an idea, Liberty Tax Services, you guys, people are walking in on any given day trying to get their taxes done by Tuesday. And what has your schedule been like?
It's been fairly busy. I mean, we were here last night until about 11:30 p.m. just working with clients who are either A, walking in, or B, just dropping off their information. So, one of my old bosses used to say, he's like, what's the purpose of a deadline if you're not going to use it? And well, we're here to help.
And you're using it for sure. All right. Speaking of deadline, let's one more time put up the calendar so that people know what day is tax day. It's a little different than normal. Normally your tax day, right, would be April the 15th, but it is not that day. It is April the 18th. So we're looking at all the way until Tuesday.
Yeah, so it's one of those special occasions where we get a couple extra days this tax season, so it's not a bad thing. So let's just use the days if we have them.
All right, so tax day is the 18th. No more do the post office stay open for you to, drop it off in the mail. It all goes by e-file, but you can e-file all the way up until midnight?
Yes, you can. I mean, we have a client who's absolutely, it's in his schedule. He's notorious. He comes in after 11 p.m. every night on the last day to file. We're open till midnight. So in he comes, and we're able to file his tax return. We get it off and away before midnight. And look, it's considered timely filed. So the IRS is open and all the time. So.
All right, let's talk about what happens if you're not getting all your things together on time. So April 18th is the deadline to file or file an extension. And so when we talk about filing an extension, what does that mean?
So, keep in mind that an extension is an extension to file, not necessarily an extension to pay. So what it really means is that, look, if you don't have all of your documents, or you can't find them, you can file an extension. So it gives you an automatic 6-month extension to be able to file your tax return. Now, let's say you've already done your tax return, or you know that you owe. Well, unfortunately, that payment is due on the 18th regardless. And if you do not file your tax return by the 18th, you're going to be issued a couple different penalties. And by all means, you want to avoid those penalties. But look, at the end of the day, the taxes are due on the 18th. And if for some reason you can't necessarily afford paying that amount that is due, then, the IRS does take payment plans if you owe more than $1,000.
All right, so they take a payment plan if you owe more than $1,000, but it's kind of like putting it on a credit card, right? Because you have to pay interest.
Yes. So the IRS is going to charge two different things. And number one is going to be a failure to pay penalty, which is going to be 0.5% per month. And in addition to that, they're going to charge interest, which is 7%. So we're already talking, you add those two up together, you're talking about a 13% annual tax or annual interest rate just alone there.
Okay. All right. So some people are going to be doing their taxes themselves, and there's always that big question. Do I take the standard deduction or do I itemize? So how do you choose which one you do?
At the end of the day, you're going to take whichever one gives you the better tax answer. But to itemize, it's mainly 3 items you have to add up together. You have to add up the taxes that you paid, whether that is your state taxes that were withheld out of your paycheck, or if it was your property taxes, either on your house or on your automobiles and so forth. Now, you can add all of those up. However, you are limited to $10,000 as a deduction on your Schedule A for that. Then you add in any charitable contributions that you had during the year, plus any mortgage interest. And if all of this totals to be more than your standard deduction, then you're going to itemize your deductions on your tax return. However, that is a fairly high hurdle. For an individual, it is almost a 13,000. You have to have more than $13,000 of those items. And if you're an individual, you're talking about 25,000. Or I'm sorry, if you're married, it's 25,000. So pretty high hurdles. But if you can take advantage of it, please do.
Okay. All right. We've got a couple of questions already here. Now, this may be something where you say, okay, we just need to be able to look at the person's taxes to be able to say something. But they said, what do you do when you find out the IRS taxes you twice? They charged me $545 twice for 2021. And I don't know if they mean like they tried to charge him twice, like that he said he owed it twice. But anytime you have a problem with the IRS, what should you be doing?
So if you ever have a problem with the IRS, so number one, you can always give them a phone call, even though that can be rather challenging on getting through.
For sure.
There is an IRS tax office in Greensboro that you can visit in person. If you go and just draw a number and stand in line there. Or the last thing that you have is that you can create a portal in the IRS with your personal information. It can go and pull down any type of transcripts that they do have. So if I was this person, that's the first step that I would take. I would go create a portal, go pull down my transcripts for whichever tax year it is they're saying they have an issue, just to see what the IRS is looking at and why they sent that notice.
Okay. And the IRS is doing all these things by mail, and I know that seems to take longer, but that at least is, that is where it's for real.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a quick break. We've got a whole bunch of questions in the queue, but we want to take your question as well. We're here until 6 o'clock, 336-379-5775. We'll be right back.